Hey, hi, hello everybody. Welcome to Tuesday live stream. आज थोड़ा live stream के अंदर there is a little bit of change, and we don't have Archit today on the show with us, but we have two of our guests from WazirX team, Abhinav and Shubham. Abhinav is from the product side, and Shubham is from the OTC desk. And today we are going to discuss a few things in crypto. There's a lot of discussion points that we've lined up. There are a few things about the market that we are going to discuss. There's a lot of on-chain data that we are planning to discuss. But before that, welcome everybody. Hi Abhinav, hi Shubham, and thank you for coming on the show. Please, let's start the conversation. If you guys can, just do a quick introduction.
Absolutely, Rohit. Thanks a lot for having us on the show. I think we've been talking about this for some time, so it's great that we're finally able to kind of join you on the show. Yeah, really looking forward to the discussion. I think I think me and Shubham have been trading for like the last 6 or 7 years. So I hope our audience finds this conversation fairly useful. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank,
6 and 7 years. Wow, that's a long time. Yeah.
yeah, 6, 7 years. And thank you, Rohit, for having me again. And to give a brief background, I'm a chartered accountant and I'm also CFA, so I have a trading experience 6 plus years again, but primarily in the stock markets and futures options. But I have been with WazirX for the last 6, 7 months, and it has been great experience till now. It has been exhilarating and full of learning right now, and looking forward to the show ahead.
Awesome. So on the show, what we also do, guys, is we do giveaways to our audience, people who keep asking questions. Slowly and steadily, a lot of people are going to join in the show, and we are going to have a lot of people asking us questions and good questions. If you ask good questions, guys, so we do a giveaway of our merchandise. The merchandise you can buy those merchandise from our merch store, and you can have a look at some of our merch, like this T-shirt, Bitcoin Guru. There are a few other merch available. NFT. This is one of my favorite T-shirts, by the way. Of course, so you can buy any of these. I'm going to give away two coupons, which you can redeem for these T-shirts, and but you need to ask good questions, okay, to our guests over here, Abhinav and Shubham. So make use of the best time that you have here, and ask up your questions if you have any, and we'll pick it up from the chat. And but more importantly, let's come back to the topic of this week that we've picked up. And Abhinav and Shubham, you know what, we guys have been discussing about this behind the show also, of course, right now, which is that, what are the learnings that we've got since the year 2021. I think it's one of the biggest years in crypto that we've seen a lot of growth. And what are your thoughts about this topic? Of course, we are going to deep dive onto these things, but the topic of this week's live stream is that the learnings that we've had from the year 2021, which is about to end. Yeah, Abhinav, you please. Yeah.
Sure. So I think when we talk about learnings, I think the first thing I realized very early on that helps the most, and I think this is a lot of my friends when they ask me how do we get started, where do I get started,
Yeah.
which crypto do I buy? I think my best piece of advice there would be is start with a clear goal in mind, right?
Hmm.
When I say goal, there's obviously multiple dimensions to that. So a simple way would be what kind of returns are you looking to make and in what time period, right? So let's say if you want to make like 50% or 100% in the next 5 to 10 years versus if you wanted to make 200 to 300% in the next year or two. I think
Hmm.
both those two things would lead you to make different decisions, right? And I think
Yeah.
the main mistake I see a lot of folks doing is they jump into crypto with this idea that hey, I'm going to be careful, but then they very quickly get kind of sidelined because you see a lot of action, right? You see another coin going up, you then immediately sell, you move there, and I think and you lose kind of track of the main decisions you're making. So I think the first thing I would do is understand exactly what kind of tolerance you have, right? How much money are you looking to realistically, I would say, even lose, right? Because this is a very nascent sector. It's got a lot of risk in it. So with that being said, I would definitely not recommend anyone going in all in with a lot of their capital. So I think understand, sit down, figure out, come to agreement as to, what kind of returns you expect. And after that, you can then build a strategy as to what kind of projects you would then invest to meet that goal. I think that would be an any way around would then lead you to making, kind of suboptimal decisions along the way. I think throughout the show we can then go over, how you would then go on to make those
I
decisions.
agree. Yeah, I agree. And before we jump onto the main topic, of course, let's do a little bit of the market update. Crypto market update. Right now Bitcoin is somewhere around $47,000, and if we just quickly go on the coin market cap right now, we can see that the last 24 hours Bitcoin is 3% down, 7 days के अंदर 7.68% down. Shubham, you would like to some comment on what's happening during this last few days in the crypto market?
Sure. So, like we saw a very big dump when we were in May, and that carried on till August. But since then, there was a pickup, and this is just a healthy correction. What I believe is if Bitcoin just keeps on going up, that's a more risky situation to be in. And this is just a healthy correction, and we are still waiting for the accumulation. The funding rates have gone down, and I think the market is pretty much clear now, and we are still waiting.
Yeah, funding rates से याद आया, there was something that we guys were obviously discussing some time ago. This is the tweet from Into the Block. Obviously यही हम लोग discuss अभी कर रहे थे. There's huge spike in funding rate in historically when the markets are overheated, right? And you're discussing exactly about this point, right, Shubham?
Yes, and honestly, 2021 has been a very great example for anyone who was new to crypto, because this is a year where we have seen the cycles getting completed and everyone can experience everything. Like, you don't have to be in the market for 5 years. What people might have learned in the 2017 to 19, like 2021 gave the same experience just in a year. So
Yeah.
I think from a learning point, it was a very good year for all the
Yeah.
crypto investors and hodlers.
Yeah, one of the questions that Vikram, one of our viewers right now on the show, is asking, what is funding rate? So, guys, can somebody explain in quick this thing? What is the meaning of funding rate?
Sure. I'll take that question. So I think when we talk about funding rates, and I don't want to confuse the audience, funding rate is typically a rate that is associated more towards futures and options trading, right? So traditionally, you guys may have heard this terminology, long versus short, opening a long versus opening a long, a short. What that means is when someone opens a long, he is essentially betting against betting on the fact that that particular crypto is going to continuously rise in price, right? And versus someone who is betting on shorting a stock, essentially he is expecting that stock to go down. Now, these longs and shorts, the way futures trading works, in order to keep these longs or shorts active, there is typically always a rate that is being charged by the exchange. It is a very small percentage of your open trade, and that is basically what's called funding rate. So now, what do we mean by a negative funding rate versus a positive funding rate? So when there is a negative funding rate, it means that the market had so many long positions open, and essentially all those long positions have been liquidated by all the shorts. So essentially, those who went long are now being forced to close their positions, and in fact, they're paying
Yeah,
those who have shorted. and
yeah,
and that's why we say that the market is now clear, because all those who essentially were long have now been liquidated, hence the market is down now, and now is a good time to buy, right? So typically you always buy when the funding rate is negative, and you always sell when the funding rate is excessively high.
yeah,
And
yeah.
very well mentioned.
Sure.
Just to add to it, in a very simple language, it's a demand supply matching engine. When there are too many longs open in the market, the funding rate tends to go down, and the the exchanges the demand supply tends to pay the short position holders who are taking a short position compared to the long positions. So you can always relate it as a demand supply matching engine, and you can track the demand and supply on the overall exchange just by looking at the funding rate, like whether it's a positive demand or a negative demand or a positive supply.
Yeah, funding rate is simply just the 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 interest that somebody would pay to go long on an asset, right? So it's, if it is positive and if it just keeps going up, what abhi ye chart ke andar what we are seeing. By the way, a lot of people are asking us to talk in Hindi, but we generally do these sessions in Hindi. But today, guys, we are going to take this session in English because there's a lot of terminologies that we are going to use, and but next time maybe in Hindi. So great question, Vikram. Thanks for asking this question. And right now, the funding rate, what we can see on major exchanges around the globe, is closing towards zero, which means there's not a lot of leverage long positions available. And the tweet right now here, it just says that it is right now, if the funding rates are lower, it just means that the market are clearing out. There's not a lot of uh, leverage in the market, and which is generally good in the market, right, Vikram? Sorry, right, Shubham?
Yes, that's generally good. Like
Yeah,
the cleaning up is done and there is no big positions open, which are just
yeah,
eating up the funding, because that's a very steady source of passive income for whales. When the funding rate is too high, they just take the position and they just wait or sit on it and earn a
yeah,
passive of returns unless the
yeah.
market shut down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to our main topic session. Which is obviously what are the important crypto trading lessons from 2021. The first trading lesson, I think, what I have learned, and obviously you guys can add in also, is that I've invested earlier in a lot of projects. But the lesson is that not to invest in thousands and thousands of projects, but to identify what your strengths are and identify where you understand those projects and ethos, and then slowly build up our portfolio. Yeah, Abhinav.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always a good piece of advice. I think it all the more matters in the world of crypto because I think just like all of us, I think we've all whoever has entered crypto, you always go through this point where you make a couple of investments and then you always see that all the other projects that you didn't invest in, for whatever reason, they seem
Yeah,
to be going up, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's not a mistake that if some of you, I'm sure a lot of you have made that mistake, but I think the point is that you're not alone. We all make that same mistake. But I think while we make that mistake, I think it's important to understand that you shouldn't get caught up into that kind of whole wave of FOMO and rather trust your own picks, double down on them and just wait for them to also move. I think it's the kind of saying, right? Every dog has its day. And, I think it's the same thing in crypto. As long as
yeah,
you ensure that you've done your research and you invested in good projects, I wouldn't chase returns of other projects because you then end up just kind of being in the middle of nowhere and being in a net loss.
yeah.
Yeah.
Shubham, what do you think? How many projects generally people should invest in? Obviously, thousand, even I think even 50 projects is a huge number, right, for an average investor. So, what do you think about this?
I think this is a lesson everyone will learn the hard way. We cannot say because the FOMO is a general instinct, and whenever you see a coin pumping 15%, 20%, you just want to get into the rally. But
Hmm.
honestly, you should invest in projects you seriously believe in, and you have to do your research. You have to know like what the project is, know about the founders, know about the community, be a part of the community. If you don't know like what the next update is, when the next meetup is, and if you're not following the interview, I believe you are not following the project very well enough to be actually vested into it.
Yeah,
And this is a very bad strategy. I have heard from people like, okay, I'll invest 1,000 rupees in all the projects of crypto. That's not the strategy. That will never work out for you.
hmm. Yeah. Somebody is asking question right now. Akash is asking question, which is how Indian crypto exchanges and foreign exchanges are different. He's pointing out to the fact that a few days ago there was a fall in the market in the Indian exchange, but not in the foreign exchange. So, any of you guys would like to
Sure.
talk about this?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think before we come down to this, let's just look at how does an exchange work, right? So if you
Mm.
look at crypto exchanges, unlike let's say something like a national stock exchange, when we talk about something like a national stock exchange, all the stocks trade only in one place, which is the national stock exchange, right? And
Yeah.
everything else, whether you're accessing it from Zerodha or any other app, it's just a kind of interface. but the final settlement and all the trades are actually being placed on the national stock exchange.
Hmm.
But when we talk about crypto is a global phenomenon, right? You've got hundreds of exchanges, all of them are essentially in different markets, right? So in a sense, the price is actually a global price, right? The price is one that is a global price, and the reason that these prices will more or less over time find equilibrium is because there will be those who we call as kind of arbitrage traders who will go and capitalize on that difference. But coming to your main question, why is it different at that particular time? It's solely because WazirX is the way to think about WazirX is like a marketplace, right? We ourselves don't hold any Bitcoin, we don't trade any Bitcoin or do any of that sort. We just facilitate buyers to come onto our platform and place buy and
Yeah,
sell.
it's an exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that particular instance that you were talking
Hmm.
about, Akash, in the time when there was some news about a potential ban, what you're seeing there is basically Indian participants panicking and selling in
Hmm.
absolute panic, right?
Yeah.
So what that means is some person is obviously panicking so much that he's willing to sell that Bitcoin or whichever crypto below its market price, right? And then what that creates is a kind of snowballing effect because one person sold it cheaper, the next person then panics and then he sells it cheaper, and then it
Yeah.
keeps on going down and down and down and down, right?
Yeah.
So traditionally, you don't see this happening in stock markets because stock markets have something called as circuit breakers, right? So
Hmm.
essentially, as soon as the stock goes down below a couple of percentage points, trading gets halted. But
Is
that does
altered.
not
Yeah.
happen in crypto,
Hmm.
which is why I think traders need to be all the more careful that
Hmm.
they don't panic sell, right? Always keep in mind that the Bitcoin's price is not dependent on what's happening in India, but rather on a global marketplace. So even if you see the price dropping down in India, it should not panic you. You should just always maintain and visit sites such as CoinMarketCap,
And
CoinGecko,
have a look at the global pricing. Yeah.
global prices, and
In
ensure.
fact, one of the things that I also observed is, when the markets were crashing, the dollar value was still the same, right? What we saw during that crash is also that the premium in the dollar and INR price got reduced, right, Shubham?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's again. I think it's a combination of two things: a lack of fundamental understanding from investors in India. I think in some ways, yes, Bitcoin people may sell them cheaper for a second or so, but I think what we saw on that particular day, which was quite surprising, was we saw Indians panicking and selling the dollar or the USDT as we call it at significantly below the dollar price, right?
Yeah.
And of course, you guys should know that whether you're trading in WazirX or anywhere else, the price of dollar is always the price of the dollar, right? So it's just that on the exchange at that morning, people panicked and they started selling dollar below 75. I think it went down all the way down to I think something like rupee 60, if I was not wrong.
66 rupees. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think I would only say in the event that someone sees something like that before, you must again, this is
Yeah.
not investment advice, but you should look to capitalize on such arbitrage opportunities because the dollar's price is always fixed with the
And
dollar.
just to explain the technicalities, what actually triggered that. So you have to understand the USDT market in India to understand this. So there is always a crypto to INR pair. Like the value of crypto is always defined in a underlying
Mm.
pair, which can be
Yeah.
INR, USDT, BTC, WRX, or BNB, whatever crypto pair it is. So the
Mm.
markets actually tumbled for the INR pair that day, and that was majorly because people were scared that will not be able to encash their crypto into INR. They were not
Yeah.
scared that they won't be able to encash into USDT or BNB. So in general, also USDT INR is never one-on-one to dollar, which is the spot market dollar. So there is a underlying sentiment which goes across the Indian exchanges or the Indian community, like how much convenient it is for you to deposit fiat onto an exchange, and how much difficult it will be to withdraw fiat from an exchange. And with the news triggering, the sentiment went like it will be very difficult for me to withdraw crypto from the exchanges into INR. So it was that was the panic which triggered it. And people who were confident enough, they believed in the project, they believed in the industry, they were holding and they were
Mm.
making profits out of it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I agree. There's always, when people panic, the weakest of the hands lose out. All right. So the next learning point to number two is to have a long-term vision, right? In fact, Abhinav was just talking in the backstage when we guys were here about, and we were discussing a few points. Is how important it is to have a long-term vision on a project, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think touching back to where we started, I think we briefly spoke about it, right? What does that vision mean? That vision encompasses essentially how hard are you willing to keep up with your portfolio? What kind of returns do you expect? Now, I think once you kind of come to an understanding of, this is how much money I want to risk, this is how much money I want to potentially, make back, let's say, in another year or two or three or four or five. Once you have that picture, you can then begin to start creating an investment strategy, right? So
Yeah.
obviously today we've got over thousands of cryptos. Investing in all of those are not going to give you the same returns. Obviously, the more smaller the projects, the higher the returns, but also higher the risk, right?
Yeah.
So it's about continuously balancing those two according to your particular risk appetite. Because the second you do something that is beyond your risk appetite, you find yourself making decisions that are not up, right? So I
Exactly.
think what you need to be ready is in the crypto world, if you cannot stomach something like a 30 or 40 or a 50% drawdown in your portfolio,
Then
uh,
you better not be here.
yeah, you shouldn't be exposing more than what you absolutely can lose, right? Because I
Can
think what we
lose. Yeah.
see now over the 7 or 8 years, even a 50%, 60% drawdown is almost normal, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's very important in kind of figuring out what your long term vision is, how much
Mhm.
you want to make, and over how long, right? You also don't, and that long term vision will also help you not chase it, right? Because
Ah,
if you want to make 200% or 2x or 3x in the year, and you see another coin pumping 40% in the next 10 minutes, you may not want to jump on that train right away just because
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like it's going to go up.
I
Yeah.
was just now, and I was just, checking the price of Bitcoin from 1 year, and it's even if at current prices, it's at 560% up from the time when the year started. Shubham, so yeah, have a long term vision. Do you agree on this?
Yes, definitely. So having a long-term vision is important because you need to have a target price. What I have seen is folks tend to love their losses. Like whenever there's a position which is in losses, they tend to sit on their losses for longer than expected. Like they could have triggered a stop loss. They could have used a DCA method to maybe bring the dollar cost down. But with profits, they're very much scared. Even if they are 20-25% up, they tend to sell before the real pump even begins. So you should have a long-term vision. You should understand the fundamentals. You should have a target in mind. That's the most important thing
Yeah.
because you don't want to sell before the real pump is there. Else you're just sitting on the losses and the profits are not actually enjoying the rally. So
Yeah, makes
yeah,
sense. There's one more thing. In fact, I was just looking at on Twitter. This is the fear and greed index, right? This is
Yeah.
right now, and what we are seeing right now is everybody is in fear. I think there's an old saying in investing, and you guys would obviously know, is when the market is in fear, that is when you start being bullish, right? When everybody's when the retail investors start talking negative about things, that's when the institutional investors pull back up, and there's a huge leg. So right now, of
Absolutely.
course,
I
yeah.
think we say don't chase the pump and buy the dump. So
Or they
just
say buy when there's blood in the market.
Ah,
exactly.
yes.
Yeah. So I think I think that's a very true sentiment, and I think it's more so true in crypto for
In
sure.
fact, there was one tweet I was reading. This is long time back, I think, when there was the first dump when it came here. During this time in June, I think Sentiments was shared this tweet when they said that the best time ever to ever buy in on crypto time zones is always when the retail investors start talking negative about things. So they track the sentiments of chat groups also, right? Those guys, there's a way to you can also measure how is the chat in the Telegram groups positive or negative. So whenever there's a negative chat going around the Bitcoin, that's around the time when the institutional investors pull back up and start off, right?
Plus, to add to fear and greed index, we always have BTC domination, which helps us to understand the real sentiment. Because alts are something which is a very risky business, and if the BTC domination shoots up, that means people are still believing in BTC and they are very much scared to put into alts. So that's the right time to maybe look for alts and invest somewhere in a very good project. And with BTC domination going down, you should maybe top up your BTC positions then.
Yeah, the Bitcoin dominance right now is what, 41% something.
Yes.
pretty good, after this time. Earlier, I remember it used to be like 90, 91%, but then DeFi happened, and obviously everything completely changed. So
Yes.
now we are settling up at maybe around 40%.
Yeah, 47 is somewhere
Yeah.
which is resistance for BTC domination.
Mm. What do you guys think in future? Where is dominance going to eventually land in? People talk about Ethereum flipping Bitcoin. What do you guys think about that?
It's a tough one to call. To be honest, I think there's a lot of kind of moving pieces to take account. On one side, it does seem like Ethereum could technically flip it, but on the other side, we're just beginning to see a lot of these kind of institutional, what is the word? I think institutional mechanisms for larger investors to get in, right? Like ETFs, for example, which should enable a significantly larger size of the investor community or the institutional investors to enter. And of course, a lot of these guys are still on the sidelines. And even in India, you take a country like India. I mean, WX is getting a lot of traction, but I think a lot of the larger players are still sitting on the sidelines, kind of waiting for regulation. So
Yeah.
I think once the regulation comes in, we may see significant uptake of Bitcoin. Just because I think further factoring the fact that you mentioned earlier on in your show, that we've now I think minted something like 90% of the supply, I think, or maybe we were talking about it earlier.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. ninety
yeah,
percent of the
I think
supply. Yeah.
that 90% of the supply, and this is something I've always noticed. These kind of shortfalls in supply are always priced a bit later. So I
Hmm.
don't think this 90% or this remaining 10% has actually been priced in yet. And I think we will see that being priced in sooner or later once these ETFs and once this minor correction ends. I think we are going to see a significantly large rally in Bitcoin to further kind of largen that gap. Yeah.
I think I was reading Myanmar is the country which made USDT its legal tender. Is it?
Yes.
Abhi, recently there's something a news that came in, right? I think there
Yes.
was a tweet or somebody
Yeah.
just messaged it. Yeah, but yeah, the 90% of the
Pretty
Bitcoin is
interesting to
mined.
see USDT as the legal tender, not BTC or ETH or any other
Yeah,
cryptocurrency.
right. Out of all the things, USDT. Why not
Yes.
UST? Why not USDC? They were pretty more. I think they are more compliant to SEC.
Maybe
Um,
they know something we don't.
oh yeah, yeah. USDT is now the biggest elephant. Uh, yeah, I think it's got what 70% of the total stablecoin value. I think something like
Yeah, I
that.
think so. Yeah, it is.
But in the white paper of USDT and BUSD, if you compare, you can clearly note the difference. Like
I
USDT,
have a link. Yeah.
yes, USDT has clearly mentioned like they invest in credit bonds as well. And they say like they can also like BUSD promises you that they will give you dollar against dollar, but USDT can
Mhm.
in times of a crisis USDT can hand over you junk bonds as well, which they
Yeah.
own on their own
Yeah.
names. So that's an interesting observation.
Complicated topic and very actually very what do you say, scandalous topic, USDT market. But yes, $76 billion, right? Huge market. I think USDC is going to be the main thing because SEC को उनको बहुत ज़्यादा support है. They
Yeah,
are
and I
being
think
very nice boys.
I think what's interesting, maybe we can touch base on it in a second. There was a project, I saw, I think maybe 3 4 months. I think someone started by someone based out of India. A
Yeah.
very interesting project. It's almost like they're building a stablecoin index, right? To essentially lower the risks of adopting any one of these stablecoins, right? So here we obviously realize there are some risks with
Oh.
USDT or anything else. What this guy has done is he basically created a kind of index token which would basically allocate
Mhm.
various proportions of all of these stablecoins. So in case any one stablecoin were to go, you're still protected in terms of exposure with all the other stablecoins. I think that's
Mhm.
very interesting, and I think we'll see such projects like that to further kind of reduce this risk that we're seeing in the market. And I think all of these are good steps forward for the overall market.
Yeah, talking about those things, learning number three, I think, is the most important. What we have is obviously concentrating on the project fundamentals. And in the backstage, when we were discussing, Abhinav had a lot of points about these these things, and
Yeah.
we came up with But of course, most important thing which comes in, and a lot of traders, in fact, are looking at, only short term. They don't go ahead and it's risky positions. But if you understand the project and the fundamentals behind it, then it becomes a little easier. I think it becomes easier for people to sleep in the night, when you
Yeah,
have long positions on good fundamental projects. Yeah.
absolutely. No, I think, yeah. So I think that long-term vision is absolutely important in all of these projects, fundamental or not. So I think what will be interesting is to take our viewers through, I think, kind of how, I would go about doing, base level fundamental analysis, right? I think when we talk about fundamental analysis, you don't need to be an expert at reading charts or any of those stuff. That's what we call as technical analysis. Uh, I think fundamental analysis, the first thing you should start off with is something, which I use very frequently, which is coin market cap, right?
Yeah.
So maybe Rohit, you can open up coin market.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we spoke about earlier on about things like building a vision, etc. Right?
Hmm.
Uh, so one second, let me just open up. Yeah. So one of the things that we do when I primarily look at a project is essentially look at what kind of volume or market cap does this project have, right? So obviously, as we mentioned, Bitcoin I think is extremely large. It has something like 891 billion. Ethereum has 441 billion. So I think the way I would read this is if someone were to ask me today, how far can Ethereum go? Technically, Ethereum cannot go bigger beyond this 2x, right? Which will just take it around the size of Bitcoin. That would be
Hmm.
a realistic assumption for a top, right?
Hmm.
And the way you would go about other projects is to see what kind of relative size they have towards Bitcoin, right? And that is essentially the upside, potential upside that any project could reach, for the given foreseeable future. But of course, we also need to factor in that Bitcoin itself moves up also, right? So that's one important factor. The most important factor I would say are the things relating to do with the token supply itself, right? So maybe
Yeah.
can dig into one of these coins, maybe Solana or Cardano or something like that, right? And I
Yeah.
think this is what we see, and based on the behavior we see in the market at least. So we see a lot of our traders, especially on WazirX, buying things like Shiba, Dogecoin, and some of these other projects, right? And my guess is that most people do this because the price seems very cheap, right? So let's look at the price of Shiba today is something like, I think, 0.000, about 4 or 5 decimals to the point, right?
Yeah, I think one rupee will get us maybe 5,000
Yeah,
Shiba.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that the whole idea is that people need to understand that in the world of crypto, the fact that these are all divisible to, I think, 18th decimal of fraction. I
Hmm.
think the first thing, I'd like to tell our audience is that in the crypto there is no advantage to holding a whole unit, right? So even if you were
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
look at Bitcoin, a lot of my friends say, hey, Bitcoin is too expensive. It's expensive to hold a whole Bitcoin, but it doesn't make any difference if you
But you
hold.
can. There's fractional ownership of
You can hold,
crypto.
there's no
Hmm.
difference in holding 1,000th of Bitcoin versus
Yeah.
maybe 2 Shiba, right? It's the same thing.
Hmm.
It's like as long as their value is the same, it's the same thing.
The percentage growth is going to be the same on
Yes,
your portfolio.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I look at how do you assess whether a particular crypto is cheap or expensive, I think that's something that's useful. And the way you would look at that is you would compare projects with similar market capitalizations
Hmm.
and then see what the difference between their price are, right? So if I had to compare two cryptos, I would only compare two cryptos with almost similar market capitalization as well as similar number of tokens supplied.
Hmm.
Only then can you then say X coin is cheaper or more expensive than the others, right?
Yeah.
So, I
Exactly.
think Shiba, a lot of people, maybe you can open up Shiba. What a lot of people don't realize is that Shiba seems really cheap, but on coin
But
market cap,
on, yeah, it's very expensive.
I think what you will
Hmm.
actually see is that the number of tokens that are in circulation for Shiba, I think, is almost more than a trillion, right?
Yeah, it
Uh,
was before they burnt like half of it or gave it away
yeah,
to
I think it's still more than like
Vitalik.
still
Yeah, yeah,
several billion, right? So I think that's what tells me that it's expensive because there's so many billions of Shiba tokens
There,
But this
there are
is
5,490,000 billion Shiba Inus.
yeah, so that's massive. When we compare
That's
this
massive.
to something like Bitcoin, which has only 21 million Bitcoin, that
Yeah,
looks cheap, right?
that's look
This
cheap. Yeah.
really looks expensive given the amount of tokens that there are. And I think this is something that I would like investors to look at more closely, to really begin to understand this
There's
relationship
also one
between.
more thing I generally have a look at is at the on Etherscan you can also look how many holders are there, right? So, but Shiba has a good community that we have to give. There's like what, more than a million hodlers for SHIB right now. Now I don't know how much do they hold. There's a lot of people who hold a lot of SHIB. I think what 20 accounts hold 90% of SHIB. It was something like that, right? But it's very active, yeah. Um, there's a lot of questions, of course, go in our chat, guys. If you guys want to pick up some questions from our chat, there's why is Dodge going down? Dodge is meant to go down, I guess. It's a shitcoin, but all
So let's talk about
cryptocurrencies.
what's driving Doge's price, right? I mean, maybe
Yeah,
you mentioned
yeah.
Doge. So I think I saw some news about Elon Musk again saying something. I think he said that that Tesla will begin to accept
Yeah,
Dogecoin,
yeah, yeah.
Tesla merchandise, but not the actual Tesla cars.
Not the actual Tesla, yeah.
And I think that's interesting in itself. So I think obviously Tesla is Elon is a, as we know, he's a great
He's a
well,
great orator.
yeah,
He's
he's a well, he's definitely one of the faces of Doge. I understand his son is a big Dogecoin miner, so
is
the
it? Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
I think,
Yeah,
yeah, there was a joke that the biggest winner from Dodge's pump was Elon's son.
yeah.
So there is also that. So I think, yeah, but I think overall that's what we're seeing clearly. He still has that ability to move the market, but I
Mhm.
think that's all that we're seeing. Yeah, there are these kind of pumps based on what Elon's saying, and I think the only thing I would add to the users also when they think about projects, and this is all the more important about things like Shiba and Dodge,
Mm.
what you will see is that the people who are holding Shiba and Doge are all extremely new investors, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
you can understand from new investors are that they only know as much as everybody else. They don't have any other new info that nobody else knows, and so invariably everybody is what I would call as weak hands, right?
Yeah.
Market drops even a little bit, everybody is so weak hands in these. The holders of these coins are so weak that everybody then begins panic selling, and then you see a full-on crash, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to some of these more stable projects like your Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, when there are larger institutional players that are holding these currencies, they're far
Mm.
likely to drop so significantly just because the
Yeah,
holders.
interestingly, we are still below 200 day moving average, huh? I didn't know this for Dodge. The 60% up is 200 day moving average
Oh
at this
yeah, I
point.
think yeah. I mean, at the end of all this, we may just not know what's. We may not have a clue about things, and Dodge may
Yeah.
actually go to a dollar, right? Who knows?
It might be crypto is interesting place. Yeah.
I think fundamentals are very important. Like one shouldn't ignore the fundamentals, and to understand a currency, you should track metrics like the volume to market cap metrics. This is a very important one.
Mhm.
You should know what the daily volume looks like. So if the volume is for a crypto, if the market cap is 100 and the volume shoots up to 200, that means someone is just pumping and dumping the market all
Yeah.
day. And you should just stay as far as you can stay from these coins. And if it is a very low, like 1%, 0.5%, then also it's a red flag. Even 5% is a red flag because you won't be able to liquidate your positions or get out of these positions when you want. So
Yeah.
10 to 20% volume to market cap ratio is something which should be a filter. Like you should have 5, 6 filters before you even pick a project. Starting from which founders, who founded the project, what's the total coin in circulation available with
Mhm.
the public. Because if 80% of the coins are held by like 5 or 6 addresses, that means you will never be able to book profits because whenever the
Correct.
market goes up, the whales will start selling,
Mm.
and the prices are pretty much controlled then. Plus, you should also follow the community more or less. Like all these crypto coins have communities on Discord or Telegram, so you should look for them, the official channels, and maybe get to know more about the project, their updates, the interviews. That always helps.
Akash is asking, which meme coins do you people hold? Any of you guys hold any meme coin?
I personally hold none.
No meme coins.
Uh,
You,
I
Shubham?
I was holding GINUX, which is a green Shiba, but uh,
What? What?
it's just on a deck, so I'm just holding some a very
What is the name of it?
GINUX. I'm not sure. I just read it from another
Green
influencer.
Shiba Inu. Bracket mein new. Acha, there was an old one also. Are you holding the new one or the old one? Oh my god.
So
I mean,
after Elon Musk, I think Jack Dorsey is also promoting this. So I thought, like, okay, if he tweets, maybe this will go to the
oh,
moon someday.
GINU is GINUX now. Okay.
Yeah, it's just on a DEX, Pancake Swap. You cannot buy it on any of the exchanges.
Yeah. It's a BB20
It's
token.
pretty new.
I held just one token in my entire life, which was Dodge, and I took a long position on it, and I got wrecked. I lost some money, and then I never invested
To be
any
honest,
shit
I have
coin
made
ever.
money by shorting meme coins. Like whenever there's a pump, I always short meme coins, and
Yeah,
that has been a very good strategy for me.
I did something. I took a long when something like this happened. You know, as I just said, Dodge ke upar abhi hai. You know, something happened. An event came up. I took a long in the coin this thing market. You know, on Binance you can leverage on your coin,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So
Leverage
I
tokens.
lost all my Dodge, which was not a lot actually, a few $100, but yeah. Okay, so the next point, which is for the crypto lesson, is crypto is not a currency market. What I actually see right now is a lot of people taking a lot of leverage, which I have also done in my past, and I've wrecked all my positions. Basically, I think if anybody is taking more than, I don't know if it's not needed to have more than 6x leverage. Some people they share their screenshots and they are taking 30x leverage, 60x leverage. That's a short position to lose your money, right? So I think and itna type ka leverage is something which is there in the currency market, right? Currency market may people take 100 leverages because there's the relative volatility to the is not so much in the currency market. So but crypto is not like that, so don't trade with high leverage. Do not trade like a currency market. That's what the
In
learning that I've
currency, the
got. Yeah,
maximum downside is 2%, 3%, and even if a government has a very bad debt or a credit default, it has gone down to 10% at max. But with crypto, you have to be prepared to survive a 50% or 40% dump on any given day. So your leverage should never exceed like 2x of your margin or 2.5x of your margin, because you have to be prepared every day. You should sleep with an expectation like market. Even if the market goes down, I have to survive.
yeah,
Because
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I
I
think the
agree.
fundamental thing about leverage is the more you leverage, you're giving yourself that much of a smaller opportunity to actually basically withstand any kind of market movement, right?
Yeah,
The more your leverage is, if you're at like 10x, 20x, or 30x leverage, even a 1% movement in the market is going to absolutely liquidate you instantly, right? So, and in an asset class where we say a daily 10%, 15% is, you don't even blink, that should tell you that you really don't want to be close to those numbers unless you're really, really a sophisticated technical analysis, uh, someone who can do that technical analysis and manage those risks.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you really don't need leverage to make money in crypto. I think fundamentally, yeah.
And
another
also, you know what I've also seen, and you guys can give your experience also, Shubham, is many times people do emotional trading, right? You take a long position and the market keeps going down, and then you're like, okay, no, market will go up. You become stubborn, and you're like, no, market jayega upar. You're looking at the crypto, you know it's going down, but then you're like, nahi main leunga or kharidunga, and then I want to buy more. I want to buy more, and then you lose up all your capital, right? So that's what a lot of traders also do. Emotional trading is a lot in new investors that don't have experience as much as you guys do. So yeah.
Agreed. And one more thing for the crypto industry, specific to the crypto industry, is like you should keep 30 to 35% of your portfolio maybe in a stable coin, because you have to have some stable coin with you just to buy the dips, because you will get dips, and it's a good thing to have taken the opportunity of all the dips, because if you are a believer in crypto, so
Yeah.
don't all in all the time. If you have 5% of a wealth in crypto, maybe keep like 1 or 1.5% still in stable coins, which you can use for day trading, or you can keep it always as a stable coin, because don't put all the eggs in 5 6 baskets also. Like, yeah, have something very stable and secured always.
Chandan Kumar is asking us, should we invest in fan tokens? Do you guys know about fan
Yeah,
tokens?
I think these fan tokens is something that we're seeing more and more. Right? I think there's a bunch of
Football
them.
fan tokens, you know?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
bunch of them even on Binance. I think there's like a Man City one, there's a Juventus one, there's a Roma fan token, there's a Inter Milan fan token.
Mhm.
Personally, on that space, I think that's a very bright space, right? I think it's fundamentally combining things like NFT and DeFi, and as well as obviously tokenizing these things. They're fundamentally built to bring more kind of close knit interaction between fans and
Yeah.
these sporting brands, and to help fans kind of influence those decisions. So yeah, I think overall the space is a good space. It is definitely a space to look out for. But of course, whether you should actually go and buy those tokens is not something that I would immediately advise, just because there's a lot
Unless
of.
you're like a huge fan of that.
And there's also, I think, while we understand that the space is good, just the sheer amount of competition makes it hard to choose between,
Yeah.
who is really the horse to bet on in this
Yeah.
space, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, like fan tokens and all the cryptos, which I don't personally believe in, like I don't want to invest in a crypto just with the mindset like, okay, if I'm investing 100, I'll take out 200. I have to understand like what's the underlying value, what's the underlying use case. Because if I'm a fan of a particular football club, I would love to invest in the fan token, but just don't invest in any token just because you're expecting it to go up, or just don't trade in fan tokens. Fan tokens
Yeah.
are something which is closer to the community, and
I think there's a lot of controversy also around fan tokens right now. People are not liking the fact that many football clubs are now leveraging these NFTs and buying and creating fan tokens out. I think there's a lot of negative sentiments around them also.
Yeah, I mean it's both good and bad, right? In a good sense, I think it does bring a lot more adoption, right? Because I think if you look at traditional users, they've always been very close to sports and games, right? So I think
Yeah, yeah.
connecting them with sports is in one way good, but of course, as you said, we do need to keep these other kind of checks in place to ensure that
Mhm.
this is not it
All
does not.
right. The last crypto trading learning number 5 is obviously on-chain analysis is underrated. I think this is so true, especially now. There's one, of course, information that is being shared right now to our viewers is the 10 largest Ethereum addresses on exchanges hold a cumulative of only uh, 3.8 million Ethereums, but the top 10 largest non exchange addresses hold more than 24 million Ethereums. So this type of information is just was earlier available only for institutional investors when centralized exchanges would sell this type of information to fund houses who have bigger pockets. But I think blockchain enables us to have on-chain analytics data to the same level of what an institution would have originally had in stock market, right? So I think on-chain analysis is so much underrated. In the future it's going to be one of the biggest uh, you know schools for traders, for retail investors and investors around the world, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Shubham, you've been trading quite a lot in the stock market earlier, right? So, what do you think about these information which is available for retail investors, where you can find out how many holders are at what price level? For example, of course, you can figure out at what price level how many holders are there for each blockchain crypto, right? So, yeah.
firstly, like with crypto, the trading experience is something which has improved so significantly, because there is no circuit breakers, there is no day close, day open. Plus, the information is so easily available that
Mhm.
and everyone is somehow at par level. But the stock market, if you have access to terminals like Bloomberg, FactSet, you get information, you get access. You have to pay for data points like this. You don't know like what block trades are getting executed. The cream information is still withheld by the top management, and
Yeah.
there is so much insider info across the stock market. So somehow there is a trust factor which comes with crypto. Like you trust that the community is there and everyone is on the same boat, and you never feel like despite we might have whales, but the whales only have money which they are controlling according to their wishes. But at least what we can guarantee is like everyone is on the same boat, and no one will be left to hang in the dry. So
Yeah.
that's the best part about being a crypto trader.
And
Yeah, this sort of information was never available. Yeah.
And I think the last thing I would add for on-chain metrics, I mean, aside from things like, people, number of people holding, number of people in profit, I think when we look at like these networks from a different eye, I think we're so used to like thinking about businesses from our traditional world, right? You look at a balance sheet and you see accounting, and you see, net expenditure, revenue, and all that stuff. And of course, those things, a lot of the time, they're not privy to public folks like us, right? It's not so easy to get your hands on the latest amount of sales that a particular company is doing outside of the blockchain. But I think
Yeah.
when we talk about crypto, it's completely flipped over, right? In fact, I don't need to talk to anybody. If I were to just look at each coin as a business where all the metrics are on chain, I can already derive a bunch of metrics, right? Whether
Yeah.
that's number of transaction volumes, what is the trend in the volume, number of transactions itself, the number
Yeah.
of new wallet addresses, the number of wallet addresses with certain balances. So I think you can essentially already gauge the sheer interaction and action of a particular blockchain just by on-chain metrics. And of course, um, whilst maybe short-term pricing may not always reflect extremely good on-chain metrics, I think in the long run we will for sure see those projects coming out on top, because at the end of the day, the ones with users and traction will always win.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
that's the fundamental thing of this whole thing.
Yeah. On that point, in fact, but I think I've been always following Cardano, but Cardano has been on a
Cardano's been
downtrend
going
right now.
downward, yeah.
Oh, we already have a bearish trend over here at this price. What is this called when the 50-day moving average drops below the 200-day moving average? It's a
I don't know the term, but it's a bearish movement.
it's a bearish move. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I think,
opposite of this is a
A
uh,
bullish movement.
and
Yeah,
in
whenever
particular to
the
Cardano,
golden cross is
yeah,
is one, but this one is, I don't know what this is. I forgot the name. Yeah.
yeah, but I think in terms of Cardano, I think I've always felt their, even though the technology is so promising, their founder is an extremely smart guy. Um, uh, I think maybe they're slightly lagging in terms of industry adoption from like the crypto projects itself. I think which is why they're kind of slowing back. Of course, we see Ethereum, Solana, the Binance chain. All of them have huge adoption of by mainly DeFi protocols and DeFi projects, whereas I'm not seeing much action at all on Cardano. Uh, yeah, that's hopefully maybe it will change down the road.
Yeah, I think it was overvalued at this price. We saw like what 101,600% spike, 700% spike here, but now it seems like on at par what we saw on Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin was 590, right, from the January to right now. So 628%. I think during the end of the year, most of these coins will have similar percentage as Bitcoin. This is it's trading below this volume profile, but that's, I think it would be interesting to see. But it's obviously one of the most famous
Yeah.
and liked projects in the crypto this thing. Yeah. Any questions that you guys would like to take from the chat? There's a lot of questions that
I
is
mean, we can
asking.
take up, I think, this one question.
Mhm.
I think the top one, right? Why mana and sand? We can take up those. So coming back to this question, so I think what you'll
Mhm.
always notice in crypto is that the price movements tend to happen by sector wise. You'll see a bunch of layer ones moving up together, or ZK rollup projects all moving up together, whether that's Polygon, Loopring, all these
Yeah.
projects moving together again. Oracle projects moving together, Chainlink, Band, and some of these other newer kind of Oracle-based projects, they move together. Now, obviously, we've got metaverse projects, and they also move together. So, of course, Decentraland, Sandbox. Of course, Sandbox is like a metaverse combined with NFT. So, I think they all fall under that similar theme, and that's why we see Sand as well as Mana both moving. Because obviously, right now, the most talked about kind of investment theme is metaverse, right? And I think, and that's why obviously Sand and Mana are both seeing kind of good
Huge
traction.
pumps, yeah. Yeah, that's true. And Abhinav, you were talking earlier that when coins like Mana and when technologies like Metaverse will go up, there will also be uptick in technologies like IPFS and storage systems, right? Mm.
Yeah, so I mean, coming back to that, I think maybe that's one last piece of advice we can touch base on to leave with the audience. I think what you guys should think about is, if you were to look at this whole, the way, at least, I keep having a chat with all my friends, is that crypto is clearly a financial revolution, right? So there's a brand new asset class being born. A lot of wealth will be created, right? But I think the way to look at this is, if you were to look at this as a kind of gold rush,
Yeah,
I would say don't be the one trying to dig the gold. Look for the actual shovels, or look for the guys who are making the shovels, right? So in that context, when we talk about metaverse now, there's clearly a large amount of interest in this metaverse space, right? So people seem to be jumping into projects like AXS, Sand, Mana. All of these projects are metaverse projects, right? So these are all the projects I would equate to the gold. These are all the gold, right? Now, what is the shovels in this space? No, I think for the metaverse dream or vision to be real, it is going to be dependent on the
the
evolution of some of these
IPFS.
other
Yeah.
parallel innovations, right? One is mainly cloud compute, sorry, distributed compute and distributed storage, right? So I think projects like Sonam, I think this was a project I invested very early on in like 2016, SONM. They focus on fog computing. So I think Sonam, Syscoin, Filecoin. I think you were just looking at Filecoin just now. I think all of these projects have been very silent for the last couple of years. And it's because I
Mm.
think they were a little bit ahead of their time. They were working on very large problems, obviously, distributed computing, distributed storage. There's significantly more challenging problems to solve on a global scale. And I think what we're now seeing is, as 5G comes to fruition, a lot of these
Mhm.
projects which started off 5, 6 years back, Sonam, Filecoin, Syscoin,
I think
all of them,
BTT was one of the
yeah,
oldest coins, right? This is BitTorrent. People who used to
BTC, yeah.
download, but they would remember.
Yeah, so
Mm.
coming back, so I think a lot of these projects that are kind of building the so-called shovels, we will see the day of light, and they will be big, big movers in the coming quarters.
Hmm. Oh, interesting. We are very, close over here for BTT. Any IPFS coins that you guys hold? Is it
Syscoin, I do hold some Syscoin. Again, nothing too big. Sorry, not CS coin, SIA coin,
SIA
SIA,
coin? Ah, yeah, CS.
SIA. It's called SIA. So SIA is again a file storage protocol. Interesting coin. It's not. It's been very.
Wasn't FTT? Sorry, what's the exchange? FTX token was supporting SIA, right? SIA technology.
SIA is supported by a very large number of exchanges. I think it's like, whether I'm not sure, but at least when I bought it very early on, it was something with Bitrex or like Poloniex or
Ah,
something else like that. But yeah, I think SIA should be available in Binance.
yeah, yeah. It is. It is.
Yeah,
But I think
Uh,
FTX has some backing, like they're on their
yes,
board and
FTX has some. Oh, some of my earlier. This thing is here. But yeah, FTX. I think when you used to, if you can stake FTT on FTX, I think they used to give SIA coin as their locked
oh,
returns.
okay, okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think this
All
is an
right.
important thing to notice when you're researching a crypto, like which venture capital or private equity or advisory board. And if you see big names, like at least you have some research they must have done. I still remember investing in
yeah.
Solana because of a private equity firm investor news, and that turned out pretty well for me.
Hmm. All right. Sounds great. I think we've almost come close to our live stream. If you guys see any question that you guys need to, you think we can take, people are asking about Matic. I just opened the chart. I think Matic is a great
Matic,
project.
I think maybe we'll spend just a minute. I think Matic again, great project
Yeah,
right now. Again, it's very much in the theme, right? So as you want to start building projects like metaverse based apps or any of this cloud compute, all of them require transactions,
yeah.
and obviously seeing a huge problem now with the Ethereum gas fees. The other day I tried to buy something like $200 of some particular coin. We ended up spending more than $350 just on the fees, right? So that
Mhm.
obviously is not something that the mass, the large retail population is going to be okay with. And so I think that's why Polygon slash Matic is doing a very important role there, right? By obviously
Yeah,
bringing out
yeah.
a roll up and ensuring that the fees can actually practically be zero. So I think once you see,
Rishav, yeah. Rishav Day is asking, please comment on chart irregularity. What do you mean by that, Rishav? Can you just send a message? I don't understand what is it that
I
you've
think
asked.
he's
He's
talking
asked
about.
a few times about this question in the chat, but I didn't understand what is chart irregularity. I mean, the charts are irregular, right? Always. Mhm. Or am I? Yeah, Shubham, you were saying something.
No, I was just talking about the same points. Like before moving to Matic, I was just discussing on the fundamental aspects of the crypto.
All right. I think that's all for this week's live stream session, guys. There's a lot of things that's happening in the cryptoverse. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, but we've discussed quite a lot of things today. There's in 2021, there's so many things that has happened. Decentralized exchanges have gone crazy on top. I think there's what 10x growth in them already. Filecoin, file systems, IPFS systems are going crazy. Metaverse is going crazy. But the lessons and learnings what we've learned and discussed today, I think are one of the most important lessons that the new investors who are going to come in crypto are going to take advantage of that, right?
Yeah, hopefully that was useful, and yeah, hopefully they were able to take something useful out of that.
Yeah, the next 1 billion people are going to watch this show in the future, and then they are going to take inputs and suggestions from what we discussed today. And I think it's going to add a lot of value to a lot of them. um, Closing points from my end. Thank you so much for joining in, guys, and discussing these very important topics on the show today. And maybe we should do sessions like these again, and maybe pick up one important topic about the crypto analytics, or maybe the metaverse. Maybe we can do a show on the metaverse itself. We can go on Decentraland and discuss our sessions over there. That would be good. Looking forward to seeing you guys back here again. Shubham, you want to add some last few words, and then Abhinav, you?
Sure, Rohit. Thank you so much for having us on the show, and it was a great session. Like I learned quite a few things myself, and thank you, Abhinav, for such a great, insightful session again.
Absolutely, guys. I think this has been great. It was a great session. Rohit, definitely thanks a bunch for having us on your show. We'd love to be on it again, and hopefully, we'll continue adding value to our user base.
Sure. I think next time when we do these sessions, let's do it on the metaverse. Let's open up
Absolutely,
our Decentraland account. Let's maybe buy a land on Mana, and let's create a place where people can jump in. Our viewers can join in, and they can keep asking questions to us over there only, and we live stream this
absolutely,
on the Wazirex YouTube show. I think that'll be nice. Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for being on the show, listening to our live stream today. We will see you guys next week again. Hopefully, next week. If not, then we will see you next year, which is not very far. We are already on 14th of December, so 15 days from now. And see you guys around. Please take care. don't emotional trade. Please listen to whatever suggestions that we've given on the show, and if you've got any questions, please message in the chat segment below. We will try to pick it up and answer you. Before that, I'm also going to give up two winners, share names of two winners who've won our what do you say, the giveaway. One of them, I think, should be Vikram, because he's the first one who asked the questions about what is funding rate, right? So Vikram should be the winner. He asked this question earlier. And Vikram, if you can message me on Twitter, so I will send you the coupon code which you can redeem for your for the merchandises. And the next question that we can answer is of course by Chandan. He asked this question in the end, which we took, that why mana and sand always are up and down in parallel, and we were discussing about crypto tokens. So both of you guys, Chandan and Vikram, please message me in the on Twitter, and I'll send you guys the coupon codes for the winner. Thank you so much, guys, Abhinav and Shubham, for joining in, and I'll see you guys next year. Yeah,
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Rohit. Thank you, Shivam.
Thanks very
thanks,
much.
Shubham.
Thank you.